Hi, Rod Fleming in the Philippines, and I'm actually dripping sweat now. I'm really sorry about this, but it's bloody roasting in here. Now, there's something often said by feminists which is a lie. It's a blatant lie. But until recently, I couldn't, you know, it's one of these ones where I'm like, that's gotta be wrong. You know, that has to be wrong. And I couldn't really see why. Now, maybe I'm a bit thick. But anyway, I'll go through it with you. And the lie is that gender is socialized, you see. They come up with this thing that gender is a function of how you're brought up. Well, that's obviously wrong. And the reason it's obviously wrong is because only part of gender is actually psychological. You know, a significant part of what gender is physical. It's not something you learn, it just is. Let's have a wee look, for example, at another species. Let's look at the peafowl. That's peacocks and peahens. Peacocks, famously, the males, have brilliant plumage. It's extremely big tail feathers, and they're very, very, very gaudy, very spectacular when they display. Why do they have them? They actually they're risky, you know. If you've got that much of a tail, you can't fly too well, and it makes you a really easy prey for somebody who might like you for lunch. So why would they have it? And the answer is it's there to attract females. And in most bird species, and also in many fish, it's the male who attracts the female, not the other way around. Okay, the male attracts the female, and then the female lays a, you know, there's a fertilization procedure which happens different ways in different species, but they come together to make the next generation. Now, in humans, it's the women, it's the females who do the attracting, not the males. What happens is that females, because females have their eggs within them, they have to attract a male to fertilize it. So, first question, remember what I said about it being actually physical? Well, the first thing is, let's have a look at our close relatives. For this, I would recommend a writer called Timothy Taylor. He's done quite a lot on this. Consider chimpanzees. Well, chimpanzee females don't have, they have mammary glands, but they don't have breasts. And yet the mammary glands work absolutely fine. They're perfectly capable of suckling a baby chimpanzee, you know, for months. I mean, I don't know what the period is, but it's like 18 months that they do this. So why don't they have boobs? The answer is that boobs in humans are nearly all fat. The actual active bit of it is quite small. And the milk is not, it's not like the milk is, you know, builds up. It's a certain amount does, yes, but actually what happens is that when the infant starts to suckle, the mother also starts to produce. So why do they have those? Why do they have those, you know, bulbous things at the front of their bodies? The reason is it attracts men, right? So what's happened here, it's really interesting, is what's happened is that women have evolved, human females rather, have evolved certain characteristics, physical characteristics, which attract men. And men have evolved to be more attracted to those characteristics. And that works through a process called sexual selection. If you've read Darwin, I seriously hope you have read your Darwin, by the way. Anyway, if you've read your Darwin, then you know that actually there are two forms of selection which apply. Everybody always talks about natural selection, which is the collective response of organisms to the environment they live in. The other one, which is talked about far less in the public, but actually in the book is a really important part of it, and the origin of species, that is sexual selection. Is how animals select their mates. Now, the way that Darwin did it was he bred pigeons, and he selected, right? Selected this pigeon to mate with this pigeon to see what would happen in terms of its plumage and characteristics and things like that. He's doing the sexual selection there. But humans actually do that for themselves. Humans select their partners. Now, in some cultures, maybe it's the parents who select, but it's always the humans who select. We select our partners. We don't, partnering and the human pair bond, it's not done willy-nilly. It's not just, oh, gosh, there's a woman, let's have her. That's not how it works. I mean, okay, most humans are, well, certainly most human males are fairly relaxed about the idea of opportunistic sex, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about forming the pair bond and producing children and raising a family. And that depends on sexual selection. You have to be attracted to your partner, and your partner has to be attracted to you. And so what's happened is that humans first appeared, Australopithecus first appeared 3 million years ago. And over the last 3 million years, we have developed certain things that really are distinctive. And most of these actually seem to be associated with the fact that we stood up. Now, if you consider other animals, chimps also, they walk on all fours. So a female's state of estrus, that is her sexual receptiveness, can be seen. You can actually look behind her because she's bent over and thus showing her vulva, and you can see whether she's receptive or not. I mean, anybody who's worked with large animals knows exactly what I'm talking about here. You know, a cow in estrus has got this huge swollen thing, which anybody who's a farmer would instantly go, oh, that one's bullying, we'll have to get her sorted out. You can't do that when you stand up. And Timothy Taylor, he mentions this. When you stood up, that's hidden. So you have to shift the attraction to some other part of the body. And the two areas which in females, human females, seemed to get the most attention are their breasts and their buttocks, both of which are almost entirely made of fat. You know, if there was no fat there, the female bottom would basically be exactly the same as the male one. And if there was no fat there at the front, then she'd be completely flat-chested. There are other things as well. For example, facial neoteny, which is that sort of softness and childlikeness that we consider pretty. That serves no function other than male attraction, mate attraction. Well, male, it is male attraction. It doesn't serve any other function. It's just, you know, what it does, apparently, or what it seems to do is it seems to trigger the male protective urge. You know, it makes the woman look vulnerable and in need of protection. And males are hardwired to protect females. They just are. I mean, don't let feminists kid you. There's no such thing as a rape culture. It doesn't exist. You look at the way that men treat rapists in prison. You know, just look at it and tell me this is somehow approved of by male society. It absolutely is not. That's a blatant lie. So, like so many things that feminists say, it's a blatant lie. So what we've got to understand is that at the basis of gender are physical characteristics, okay? And some of these we discussed. There are others, there's plenty of others. One other that's worth mentioning just now is that humans have a thing called extended sexuality. Most animals, right, the females of most animals are not sexually receptive unless they're in estrus, that is, they can get pregnant. But human females are different. They're sexually receptive, or they can be sexually receptive at all stages of their cycles. They're even sexually receptive, or can be, when they're pregnant, and they can't get pregnant at all. Again, you can't get pregnant twice. So why is that there? And that's there because it helps to cement the pair bond. And we'll come back to this because it's quite important. But on top of that, there are a set of behaviours which are often claimed by some people, feminists, to be psychological and not real, they're just social. It's absolute nonsense. Just because something's psychological doesn't mean it's not inherited. That's not how it works. We do inherit our psychological traits. We absolutely do. We know this. I mean, I don't know how many studies done now which absolutely show that psychological traits are inherited. Now, if psychological traits are inherited, why on earth would gender not be? You know, it's pig ignorant. It's absolutely pig ignorant. And this pig ignorance leads to some very, very dangerous fallacies. One of them that I was reading about earlier is called the symmetry factor. And that basically means that there's an assumption that women are subject to all of the things that men are, and vice versa, because feminists say men and women are exactly the same, no difference. But it's absolute nonsense. We know that there are numerous psychological factors which are not common in women, but are very common in men. And that must be inherited. It must be. It's innate. Gender is not only innate, it's evolved and inherited, and you cannot get rid of it. Now, when you come back to this feminist argument, what they're then saying is that society is what creates gender. Because, these awful men, they set up society in such a way that it just oppresses women. That's what it's all about. It's just for oppressing women. It's complete bloody nonsense. Society is gendered because humans are gendered. It's not the other way around. Humans came first. We came first. Our societies, as we know them today, didn't appear until relatively recently. We don't really know what human society was like even 100,000 years ago. But we've got very good ideas of what it was like in the Paleolithic period and up to today. And we can say that gender's always been part of it. There's always been separation by gender. And that happens because gender's innate. We are gendered, therefore the societies we live in are also gendered. It's not the other way around. And what that means is that the argument proposed by feminists that gender can be got rid of, and trust me, there's not a week goes by, but I don't get 2 or 3 papers into my inbox saying, ridding society of gender, or solving the gender, and all this complete, utter balderdash. It's not possible. You can't do it. You cannot get rid of gender. You just have to accept it. That is the way it is. Men and women are not the same. Now, I'll do another piece later, maybe tomorrow, because I'm beginning to turn into a greedy spot here, discussing how that affects transsexuals in particular. That is, people whose gender doesn't match their birth sex. And I'm not talking about the autogynephilic types here or the autohomoerotic types here. I'm talking about the genuine sexual inverts. Why do they exist and how do they come about? And how is it that they so closely match this innate gender profile that we would expect from the opposite sex? And I'll do another video on that because it's really important. And you can't really understand transsexualism unless you understand that. It's really that important. And transsexualism at the moment is something that we're spending, we should be concerned about, because transsexuals, that is homosexual transsexuals, transition sexual inverts, are unquestionably one of the most oppressed groups in society. And very little is being done to try to help them. In fact, a very great deal is being done to harm them. And it's being done by people who are claiming to try to protect them. I mean, you get idiot quacks saying, oh, young boys shouldn't be allowed to transition until they're 23 because they haven't a clue. It's just a pack of lies. It's absolute lies. And it's done with a specific purpose in mind, which is most of the academics anyway, who espouse these false views, have bought into a notion pushed forward since 1970 that the Western model of gay is best. That's what you should be, gay. If you're a boy who likes men, you should be gay, because that's better. Gay is better. That's what they all say. Gay is better. There's no substance for that. There's no justification for it whatsoever. Until 1969, more or less, the opposite was the truth. The opposite was true. If you were a boy who liked men, you're expected to be a girl. And that's what you would do if you lived in a culture where you could do that. And that's what we see here in Southeast Asia. The reason that there are so many transsexuals in Southeast Asia, and again, leaving aside the autogynephiles, which there are plenty of, but there are loads of HSTS as well. Many more than you think, because an awful lot of them you just don't know they're HSTS until somebody says. Or the girl herself goes, yeah, I'm Bakla. And you just say, really? I'm impressed, The reason that happens is because people are tolerant. They don't make them hide. In the West, people are made to hide. HSTS, that is transition sexual inverts in the West, are so persecuted by TERFs, by GCs, by the new gay man, who has absolutely no time for him. He hates femininity in males, that they hide. They do a thing that they call woodworking. They go, I'm not going to be, I'm not taking part in these pride parades. I'm not going to go to the bloody quack. I'll self-made. I'll go to, if I'm going to have surgeries, I'll go to Thailand. I'll stay away from anything which might out me as trans in my own culture, because I know how hostile this culture is to me. And the other thing that I found recently, talking to people who read my correspondence for my YouTube channel, this channel, is that, as has been the case for many years, and I actually thought this would have died out, but no, still going on. The HSTS go to a so-called gender specialist, and they immediately get treated as if they were AGP. And they start asking about, do they get a thrill from dressing as a woman? HSTS don't get a thrill from dressing as a woman. HSTS get a thrill from attracting men. That's why they do it. It's a mating strategy. It's a simple mating strategy. They don't want gay men. They might have gay friends, that's true. But as far as sexual relations are concerned, absolutely no bloody way. They don't want to know. Because they know that the gay men are girls too. And they're not lesbians. They're not going to get into a lesbian relationship. What they want is an actual straight guy. And here in the Philippines, and this is true across Southeast Asia, older men, particularly men who have been married or are still married and have kids, are regarded as the most attractive targets by HSTS, by transition sexual inverts. Why? Because they've proved they're real men. They've proved they're not gay. They've got kids. Their mojo is absolutely nickel. So they make suitable partners for trans women. Anyway, that got off a little bit of a ramble at the end there, but we'll come back to this. The point is, gender is innate, and society is gendered because gender is innate. Humans are gendered, therefore the societies they live in are gendered. And there's just no way around that one. That's the way it is. Okay, peeps, see you later. I'll come back. I might get a green screen arrangement here so I can put a nice picture of, beach and boats and stuff like that behind. Because the trouble is that, we've got to be careful with the light and the heat. The problem is we can't run the aircon and make videos at the same time. It just can't do it because it makes too much noise. And even the fans, I have to sort of edit out this constant whizzing noise, the whirring of the fans, and that affects the quality of the sound generally. So I have to sit here and roast myself in order to create wonderful videos for you guys. Take care, and we'll see you later. Bye.